Is she there, Claudia?
Yes, she's there. 1 second.
Okay, good.
Bernice, can you hear me?
She's muted. Yeah.
Hi, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay,
Hi, Bernice.
good evening, Bernice. Okay. Can you hear everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Give her a chance just to.
Bernice,
Get it.
can you get your video to work?
It's on. I don't know if I see me.
Oh, we see
Okay.
you.
There you
Oh,
are,
do
yeah.
you? Okay, I don't, but that could just be,
She said twice.
Yeah, I have a screen that's just my computer
Oh, there
and
you
then
are.
one that's
there you
yeah,
are. Okay,
I'm there.
no problem. Okay.
Okay, we're recording, so let's begin. Good evening, everyone. This is, excuse me. This is a special meeting of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment being held electronically via Zoom on December 6, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Publics Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the sunshine notice of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment. Such notice has been placed on the official bulletin board at the Princeton Municipal Complex and by transmitting a copy of the notice to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, and by filing a copy with the Clerk of Princeton on December 1st, 2023, and has been posted to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. Pursuant to the extension of the ongoing state of emergency by Executive Order 23292, in accordance with the Emergency Remote Publics Meeting Protocol for local public bodies to conduct a public meeting without physical attendance by members of the public. Notice that during this extension of the state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and the Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on the 24th day of April, 2020. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the municipal complex and on the Princeton website and are to be maintained throughout the year. And by transmitting a copy of same to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, Comcast Media, and by filing a copy thereof with the Clerk of Princeton, such notices have been placed on all the window doors of the municipal complex. Okay. Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Chen,
Here.
Ms. Coulson,
Here.
Mr. Davitt,
Here.
Mr. Floyd,
Here.
Mr. Shriver,
Here.
Mr. Tenenbaum, Mr. Stein, Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. We have just two applications this evening, no resolutions. The first application is case number Z22-236, 240 Hunt Drive, block 6501, lot 1, block 12 in the, what is that, R1 zone. Karen, can we have all the notices
Yes,
been?
the noticing is in order and the board has jurisdiction tonight.
Okay, good. All right, Mr. Bridger, you want to be sworn in and give us our opening?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Derek, do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. The applicant is the Helen Zoo 2012 Irrevocable Trust. They're also the owner, and they're seeking a use variance pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-70D6 to exceed the maximum height by over 10% to permit raising of the house above the base flood elevation. A C1 bulk variance is requested for the existing non-conforming lot frontage to permit the construction of a new single-family home. The property is located in the R1 zone in the former township. The existing single-family use is permitted as of right. The frontage is non-compliant on the lot. The requirement's 200 feet and the existing is 160.88 feet. The subject property complies with all the applicable other bulk regulations. The property is in a suggested historic district, and Elizabeth Kim is here. She has a memo from the HPC she will present to the board after I'm finished. The applicant's proposing to demolish the existing house and construct a new home. Will feature 6 bedrooms, kitchen, study, dining room, living room, 6 bathrooms, a powder room, lower level with 2-car garage, crawl space, storage area, and utility room. Approximately 8.96 acres of the 9.5 acre site are located within the FEMA designated flood zone. The subject lot has flooded in recent storms, and the applicant has obtained a base flood elevation certification from FEMA, which establishes the base flood elevation at 87.3 feet. The lowest finished floor will be seated 2 feet above that flood elevation. So a variance recap is the lot frontage variance for the C1. Requirement's 200, existing is 160.88. And then the height maximum in this zone is 35 feet. And the proposed height will be 39.5, which is over 10%, which makes it a technical use variance. And it requires 5 affirmative votes. The applicant should demonstrate special reasons for granting of the variance, as well as any negative criteria. And that's basically my memo. If you have any questions, be glad to address them.
I think
Thank you.
maybe you're welcome. Elizabeth, would you like to give us your report on?
Yes.
Elizabeth, I'll just swear you in. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
So this application originally came in a little different than what you've seen today. They originally wanted to raise the building due to the damage that the house had sustained from the Ida storm. That application came in 2022 with a different architect, at which time that architect and myself went out to make a site inspection about the visibility of this property in the recommended Trolley Historic District. So the house itself is pretty far away from the Stony Brook, and it really wasn't visible. But at our site visit, we did see a watermark about 5 feet high on the rear sliding door. So it was obvious that it really sustained a lot of damage. And at that time, a memo was issued that we had no objections. But as you know, that your board did not review that application formally, because subsequently the application was amended for the application to propose the demolition of the house and the construction of a new single-family house. So for the same reasons that HPC felt that there was no objection, we still stand in that same position. It's really not visible from the trolley line in the back of the property, and this property is very deep. So again, we maintain that position. However, we do offer a few comments and recommendations just for the board's consideration. To keep that visibility buffered still, we recommend that the vegetation in the back, which also includes any type of brush, to be maintained to keep that buffer that exists from the new addition or the new construction of the house. And we also asked if the applicant had considered perhaps retaining part of the existing house, incorporating into the new addition, just because of the sustainability principles. And the other thing is that the house, the way it's proposed right now, has a very long flight of stairs to the front entrance because of the elevation of the building. And was wondering if it was possible for them to possibly raise the elevation in the front to make the staircase a little bit lower and kind of feather the grading out and to make that a little bit more consistent with the other houses that are neighboring it. Otherwise, that's all the comments we have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, who's going to be presenting the application? Mr. Kennedy.
Good evening, Mr. Cohen, members of the board. If we could, Claudia, there's one other witness, Alexander Mikos, our surveyor from our engineering team, is in as an attendee. He and our architect, Jeff Fletcher, will be our two witnesses tonight. And as he's coming over, I want to thank Derek and Elizabeth, and actually beyond Derek here, the whole engineering staff for the township. This is a project that's been a long time coming, and it's had several iterations, largely because we've been working with and trying to get approval from state DEP for the flood permits to do any work on this site. And we're pleased that we finally broke through and have the elevation approval in hand. And as you heard from Mr. Bridger, you'll see some slides of the flood damage here. This is unfortunately a lot that is kind of the bottom of the bowl. And it is quite a low position. And when the flooding came, and you'll see how high it went, we all talk about these new flood rules. They are done for a reason, and wish that these were ones that they had thought through years ago when this house was built. It should have been built at a higher location, and we're here to talk about that. The original idea was to lift the existing house, but just the damage and expense for that really made that not feasible or the best idea. So the homeowners went and had a new home designed, and even then we had several iterations where we thought DEP was approving at certain heights, and we came close, we thought, to a approval that would not have required. We're at 39.5 feet, and that's with a lot of tricks that our architect has done. You'll see it is a pitched roof, and it's the shallowest of a slope that we could do with a pitched roof. It could comply with a flat roof, but we felt both aesthetically that the pitched roof makes more sense for the neighborhood. And as Ms. Kim said, and you'll see in the photos, both because this property is set down and back, it is almost invisible from the street and the surroundings. So there's no negative impact on any of the surrounding neighborhood. It is quite unique in that regard. If we could have our two witnesses sworn in, Alexander and Jeff will be our two witnesses. If you guys could unmute yourselves, and Ms. Casey, if you could swear them in.
Sure. Gentlemen, do you both swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. If it's also all right, we have a slide deck that we provided. I believe it is 20 sheets. The last one says thank you, though. I'd like to have that marked as our one exhibit this evening.
Okay, thank you.
So Jeff, we'll start with you as the project architect, and then we'll slip back to our engineering team and surveyor. But Jeff, I know you've been argued and appeared before this board many times, but if you could very briefly give the benefit of your experience, and so I can have you accepted as as an expert tonight.
Hi, Jeff Fleischer. I have a bachelor's in architecture from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I've had my own architectural office since 1997.
We'll accept you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So Jeff, let's orient the board. This front photo here, this actually shows the house from the street. Is that right? Though it's kind of hard to see.
Yes, it is.
All right. Next, we've got the zoning map. We're in the R1 zone in the former township. That arrow is pointing towards the property.
Yeah,
All right. Next, and still oriented in the same direction, a kind of a area map showing where the property is in relation to Rosedale and Elm Road. And you can see here the Stony Brook and its tributary, which make up a good chunk of the back rear yard of the site. Flipping things around so that Hunt Drive is kind of at the bottom here. Now we've got an aerial photo of the existing home and the surrounding neighborhoods. The lot that we're talking about and the setback is quite unique compared to the rest of the homes in the neighborhood. Well, Jeff, in scale, they're all quite similar. These are larger homes, certainly, but this one, because of the shape of the lot and the topography, is set back and quite secluded from the others. Is that?
yes, that's correct.
Next, just piggybacking a little bit about what Ms. Kim noted from her site visit. These are a couple of photos that show how high the water came in the flooding. So Jeff, I guess this is a photo on the left that been kind of highlighted the high water mark, and then some interior photos that the owners took and gave to you.
Yes, it came up approximately 5 feet, yes, into the first floor.
Again, these are not really for any particular purpose, just to orient the board a bit, but here you've got another showing of that rear line that I think Ms. Kim was mentioning, and some of the water damage. I think, gosh, does that drawer show a pan in a drawer that was full of water?
Yeah.
Next, Jeff, thank you for that initial orientation. We'll get back to the architecture of the site here, but Alex, if we could introduce yourself. You're on the engineering team for the site and the surveyor who worked on the project. If you could very briefly give the board the benefit of your credentials and connection to the project.
I'm a licensed surveyor in the state of Pennsylvania. I've been working in New Jersey for the past 40 years doing land surveying and civil engineering under the guidance of a licensed engineer. I've done plot plans, grading plans, septic designs, elevations. I also have my certificate for delineation of wetlands. I'm responsible for filling out and filing applications for wetlands, transition areas, any permitting that goes along with that. And I've been doing that since 1992.
Okay, I think well, you work for another firm, and
What firm do you
I
work
work for
for?
Golden Bombell Engineering.
Okay, and they sign and seal the drawings.
And not the survey, the Eric Rupenrain is our PE. He's the one that signed the drawings, and he is from our
Okay.
company, yes.
Very good. We'll accept you as an expert in this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Alex, you could talk about your involvement of the project. I think we're looking here. This is the existing home location, but just talk a little bit about the features. I know I mentioned that this house is set down physically from a topography perspective below the surrounding sites, but I think here we can see some of the water features. If you just generally describe.
Yes, in the back, we have several streams that this property feeds into, and they sit down behind the house. We identified the wetlands. This map does not show the wetlands. The Flood Hazard Department asked us to remove the wetlands because they were not approved at the time. We have an application that is pending at DEP to verify the wetlands. So as part of the application, we'll know exactly where the wetlands are, even though we have them located. The wetlands run approximately along there. I don't have a way of showing it here, but there's a line that comes across the back that is actually the FEMA line. And the wetlands pretty much follow along that FEMA line. It's a low depression as you're coming down off the backside of the existing house. And everything in there sits very low, and the water just floods those banks. And the FEMA flood hazard line that comes up to the portion of the property behind our house has buffers extending almost to the road. We have a 300-foot buffer off of the top of the bank for all the flood hazard area. So the entire site is basically encumbered by flood hazard. And we have raised the dwelling above the FEMA elevation by 1 foot. And then New Jersey requires us to go 1 more foot above that for the first floor. And that's how we set the first floor elevation. It's at the minimum that we can go. We can't put it any further in the ground. We're just not permitted under state statute.
So, and Alex, so I'm just moving to the next sheet here. I think there's a little clip of the permits that were received here for the flood hazard area verification and general permit number 6, which I believe allows the construction on the site because it was an existing developed home. Could you just talk a little bit? This is the plan for the revised home, I guess, as compared to the existing home, relatively in the same location. Can you talk a little bit about that new flood elevation plus 2 feet as it compares to the actual ground that we're dealing with that was flooded?
The ground elevation in that area, I got to look a little bit closer at my map. You're looking at an elevation of 87. So we're at grade with the proposed house. The FEMA map requires 87.3 as the base flood elevation. We have to be 1 foot above that for FEMA regulations. And then for the New Jersey regulations, we have to be another foot above that. So we've set the first floor at the minimum elevation of 89.3. And we had to set the garage down because we're not allowed to fill around the garage because we have a net fill calculation that we have to adhere to.
The garage is sitting on existing grade.
That is correct.
And then all the other elevations are set based on other regulations.
Yes.
Is there, go ahead.
Apologies. And just just from a layman's perspective, Alex, says that existing grade to the new first floor grade is considerably elevated up over what would have been flooding before. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Apologies, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to interrupt. I don't know if I had the same question that you did.
No, go ahead. Please continue.
So, Alex, you said there's one additional permit pending that's to allow essentially
The verification of the wetlands.
Yeah.
And as part of what we're doing, even though we're not in the wetland area, we still need to know exactly what the limits of wetlands and buffers are to make sure that there's no permits that were required in addition to what we've already done.
Is there anything that you're waiting for that might affect any of these elevations or how you place the house or, set the
No, because the house is existing, so they have the right to rebuild what's there, but unfortunately, it's just not feasible. And with trying to raise it up, it's just going to be cost prohibitive to try and repair what's there and build upon that. So they have the right to utilize what they already have. Where they're outside of the wetlands and they're outside of the buffer. So there won't be any additional disturbance to those areas.
To be identified, but there'll be no modifications, no matter what they approve. Once they give you an approval, you can continue on with this plan.
Yes, and we expect that soon. Everything has already been submitted to DEP and it's under review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
I think unless anyone has any other questions about the permitting that was received, I'd like to next go to our architect and talk about the actual height and plan for the home.
Ryan, I have a question.
Yeah.
Stephen Schreiber, on this slide that you're showing us, can you show us how far up the water went?
I guess from a left to right, kind of front to back perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can. I know we saw it vertically on the home as about 5 feet above the then existing grade. I suppose you could with topo figure out where that actually seeped, front to back, but I don't know that we delineated it that way, just kind of vertically. It does.
But it did come from the right or the left to the right.
Just as with a quick look at the plans, if you don't mind me jumping in, it appears that the elevation around the house would have been 85. So if it was coming up 5 foot, that would give you a water elevation of 90, which is close to what Hunt Drive is.
Okay.
So the whole lot would have been flooded.
And one other quick question, it doesn't have any bearing on anything. had the house flooded before this, or was this the only time it had ever flooded?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not sure we do, unless Jeff, the owners, revealed that to you, in part of your discussions with them. I think this is the first significant flood.
Okay,
I'm not
thank you.
aware of any previous flooding. No.
So with that, unless there's any other questions, and of course, Alex isn't going anywhere. So if anyone has any more later, there'll be an opportunity as well. But Jeff, we can start going through the elevation. So this is I'll call the front elevation from from Hunt Drive.
Yes.
And I know we talked about some of the numbers here, but there's a line at the top that goes to the 39.5 actual top elevation, but that's not really the top of the majority of the roof. That's really just that peak of that one gable. Generally, the main part of the roof is about what, 2 feet lower than that 39.5
Yeah.
height.
Yeah, and the reason for that higher roof, that's where the stairs and the elevator are located.
And I know this has a traditional pitched roof with the asphalt shingles. I guess this also represents you kind of flattening it as much as possible, but still able to use traditional shingles and not a flat roof.
Right, it's a 4-on-12 roof. And the manufacturers don't recommend going less than 4-on-12 with the asphalt roof.
On it. And
Asphalt shingle.
the elevations that this had to just start with, there really wasn't much other way to squeeze much else out of the project, unfortunately, right?
No, the first floor has a 10-foot ceiling, the second floor a 9-foot ceiling, which isn't out of the ordinary. And essentially we had to raise the whole basement above grade to bring our first floor to the right level.
And what about the attic with that shallow pitch roof? Does it leave much of an attic? What kind of ceiling heights would you be looking at there?
Yeah, they would be under 4 feet.
Okay,
the ceiling.
so it's now if this were given a flat roof aesthetically, could it be designed to be under the 35-foot variance requirement?
It could, but the client preferred not to do a flat roof because they're afraid of water.
Yeah.
And flat roofs do leak or have a tendency to leak.
Moving to the other elevations, this is
Ryan, sorry, if you could stay on that. I just wanted to point out that Elizabeth Kim mentioned about berming up to the stairs or bringing grade up. Those squiggly lines on either side of the stair are actually our intention to bring grade up on either side of the stair. If you go back one more slide, Ryan, to the plan, you can see how that circular driveway that's existing and the stair is meeting up with that driveway. So we can't build up grade anymore without destroying that existing driveway in the front.
But beyond that, though, I guess we think that's a good comment. You are trying to implement that kind of concept in the plans already.
I was, yes.
Yeah. All right. I think moving now to the rear elevation. I guess oh, sorry.
So there's a deck out back from the first floor. The ground floor level has some storage rooms and crawl space on the ground level.
And that basement level, I guess there are some, this is a technical thing, but there's some special venting and other kind of flood design elements that we're required to have to allow this to be built at this
yes,
area?
it will be flood-proof construction, concrete. And yes, any floodgates that are required will be provided in the foundation.
And that kind of peaked gable that we're looking at towards the center here, that's the stair tower and where the elevator will be.
Yes.
It kind of limited your ability to squish that down, but that's the only part that actually gets to the 39.5. The other parts, while above 35, would be below the 10%. That's right?
That's correct.
We've got the two side elevations, which I think at least on the west elevation shows a little bit more of what Ms. Kim was talking about, that, you know, attempt to kind of build up the grade a bit around the house.
That's right. And because at the bottom of the stair, that's to the left, the main stair, that meets up with the driveway, the existing driveway level. Yeah.
So next couple of slides, we've got some, you know, features of the neighborhood. You know, the setback for this home is almost 300 feet as proposed and nearly as existing. And we tried to show the other homes with much different setbacks, frankly, and how this one slips behind those other homes from a visibility perspective. Next series of photos, Jeff, I guess on the right, that's an area map that shows where the photo is kind of orienting from. So this is kind of a photo from the house if you're on the right of 140 Hunt, looking across it, and you can, if you really peek through, see through the mature trees, some of the existing home, but it's really quite screened. Now we're going to kind of go right to left. So now we're looking, Jeff, this is looking kind of right down the driveway towards the home.
Yes, from Hunt. Yes, from Hunt.
And I guess this is even a winter photo here. So even in the winter, it's quite screened and almost not visible at all from the street. Here it is. If you walk up the driveway, I suppose what you can see, you know, walking a little bit further down and zooming in, but still quite screened. Whoops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Apologies. Here is kind of from the left corner, again from the street, showing the mature evergreen trees that hide the home. Next, from the property next door to the left, again through the mature trees and going a little further, you can kind of peek through and see a little bit. But Jeff, largely this is not visible from the surrounding areas. Is that?
That's right.
Lastly, you know, there are two variances here tonight. One, you know, is entirely a function of needing to lift the home out of the flood elevations that were approved by DEP. The second, though, is a pre-existing non-conforming frontage requirement. As existing, the home has 160.88 feet of frontage where 200 feet is required. That's our kind of classic C1 variance. As it turns out, excuse me, the homes on either side do not have any spare frontage to spare. The left home is exactly 200 feet. The one to the right is also non-conforming, and we would not be able to borrow, beg, or steal any additional land or frontage to make them conforming. So the C1 variance is, you know, essentially more of your classic. There's not much we can do about that situation. As Mr. Bridger said, though, the height variance does need 5 affirmative votes. I'd like to just point out, kind of in summary, that there are quite a few purposes of Princeton zoning that are achieved by allowing the home to be lifted. That includes A, B, C, and E. You know, to guide the appropriate use and development of lands in a manner that will promote public safety, morals, and general welfare. B, in particular, to secure safety from fire, flood, panic, and other natural man-made disasters. To provide adequate light, air, and open space, and to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations in the neighborhoods. We hope you'll agree that there's almost no detriment here. While it does go over the height requirements, they are almost imperceptible from the neighboring properties or the neighborhood. I also do want to note one of the other comments that HPC made, which we also agree with, and likely is also in terms of the state approvals, because the back of the property is almost entirely wetlands. But also in agreement with that comment, you know, the view from the back on the from the trolley corridor, while you really can't see the home from there either. And we're happy to help it make sure it stays that way, and not disturb the screenage from the back, which largely will frankly be achieved by the DEP approvals, where we won't be able to disturb that land back there anyway, and haven't really requested permission to touch the back like that. But this is technically a D6 variance, and we believe that this particular site is able to accommodate the increased height, and which doesn't offend the purposes of these restrictions, which are largely visible and density based. And on top of that, the negatives associated with that are appropriately mitigated with this unique property. It is set well below the others with a significant screening. So if this height were proposed perhaps for the front of the street, it might be perceptible and have a concern from a height perspective, but because it is set so far back, down, and behind these mature trees, the benefits of being able to lift the home up above the flood level. Oh, apologies, I think Suri thought I was asking it something. But the benefits of raising this up above the flood levels are quite important ones, and they're in our mind is not any detriment that would be perceptible or visible from the neighborhood, or that would offend the zoning scheme. So with that, happy to take any other questions that the board might have for either our surveyor from our engineering team or our architect.
Board members, any question of the applicant or the witnesses?
Yes,
Donna?
I have them. The garage, you will rebuild a new detached garage? Or will there be an attached garage?
There is an existing detached garage that will remain. And then as part of the new house, it will have a 2-car garage in essentially the basement, the lower level.
Okay, so
call it the ground floor level.
All right, and the existing garage, detached garage will stay there. That's not going to get elevated.
Correct.
Okay. The size of the house, the footprint of the house as compared to the footprint of the house that's existing, how does that compare?
You can kind of make it out on the site plan that's currently up. The darker shading, I believe, is the existing home, and then the other outline shows the new. So as far as footprint's concerned, they're approximately the same.
So,
the new house is larger. I don't know how many square feet, but it is larger.
But you're saying it occupies the same footprint?
Approximately, yes.
Same square footage of footprint.
Yes, same square footage as footprint.
It is rotated a bit slightly and sited slightly differently. You can see that the old home was, kind of askew, maybe 20 degrees from the new proposed one.
The basement, you're saying the basement will also be 2 feet above?
Well, yes, technically it doesn't have a basement. The ground, I'll call it the ground floor level, is where you will enter, and then you have to come up about 9 feet to the first floor.
So you're saying that the basement, maybe if this helps clarify, the basement, because of the flood mitigation technology, isn't really a basement or finishable, right? It has kind of breakaway panels and things to allow floodwaters out.
Well, correct, but the garage is the only part that's below the flood, so that the garage will have to have the floodgates. But the other part of the house is 2 feet up from that, so they won't need floodgates at that level, that lower level.
And is the basement, if you for the square footage of the house, you know, how many square feet the house is,
Right.
do you include the basement in that, or you don't include the basement?
Well, anything that's, yes, you would include that square footage.
Okay, because I'm looking at your A2. And it looks like the square footage of
Maybe
the
this is more a
basement
question
is,
for Derek. I believe that the floor area, I mean, from a floor area perspective, basements aren't counted as floor area in single
Okay.
family homes.
That is
but-
correct, but this doesn't qualify as a basement because the average grade to the bottom of the first floor joist is greater than 4 feet, so
That's right.
Jeff included it in FAR,
I did, yes.
which is correct.
okay, so this square footage of this house is approximately square footage of livable,
The livable square footage, because a lot of the basement is really just an entryway and a garage, so it's approximately 8,000 square feet.
okay. The flood grade level, the base level, are you gonna have to put fill in to meet that, or did you say you don't need to do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you've got
The-
crawl
the-
spaces here.
The 87.3, the
Yes,
base flood elevation, 87.3. Is the house sitting on the 87.3 now, and they're just gonna pull it up, or do you have to bring fill in to get to the 87.3?
well,
If
we
I
made,
may, the 87.3 is the FEMA flood elevation. The first floor is set above that, and then the stem walls going down to the footings would extend into the ground, but there won't be any fill required for them. Because the grade is going to stay the way it currently is around the backside of the dwelling, I believe. Is that correct?
So as you're saying that the only fill opportunity that will be changed is the type that I guess Elizabeth was also recommending for visually in the front, but otherwise the.
Yes, we're going to look at to see what we
grade-
can do with that, because we have to also be within what the FEMA regulations allow us to do as far as fill.
Okay. Are all the roofs pitched? It's hard to tell from your drawings.
Yes,
you know,
they are.
what we've seen.
yes, they're all hipped roofs, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have any questions? Mr. Kennedy, I'm going to open this up to the public. Do you want to say anything before we do that?
Just to thank you guys, and particularly thank you for the, I know it's a double month for everyone, and much appreciated you guys working through the backlog with us here tonight. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open the meeting up to the public. If there's anyone out there in the audience that would like to speak to this application, indicate that by the bottom of the screen. It says raise your hands and you'll be recognized. Claudia, do we have anybody who's indicated they want to speak?
There are no hands.
Okay, just wait a couple of seconds here and then we'll close the public portion. Hearing no one wants to speak, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Once again, Mr. Kennedy, before we go into executive session, you want to sum up or say anything else?
All right, again, thank you, everyone. And to Derek and his team and Elizabeth for looking at this. It's been a long road since this flood happened, and most of that delay has been with DEP and the flood rules changing midstream. We've designed the home a few different times now based on different flood rules as they've come into effect, and we're here with the tallest essentially flood elevation. It seems like that would have protected this home had it been built that way initially, and it seems like the appropriate way to do it now. As the architect said, it could be built with a flat roof that would comply, but we hope you agree that a traditional pitched roof, albeit one that's flattened a bit, to help it be less conspicuous, is more appropriate for a house like this and something that won't be perceived from the street or the neighbors because of the screening and the way that the grade is. And, you know, the way that this lot is set down below the others, if we were to kind of extend the grade of the other homes, you might actually have something more comparable from a height perspective if they were put next to each other. But luckily here, they're not next to each other. They're quite uniquely distant from the neighboring homes, visually hidden. And then if you combine that with the essential benefits of lifting this up over the flood elevation, we hope you agree that that's the right choice for this lot. And I'll also note, though, that if you're the other variance does not need 5 votes and is essentially separate, but we have that standard unfortunate C1 request for the lot frontage, and there's unfortunately nothing we can do about that. The lot to the left is exactly 200 feet, and the lot to the right is also non-conforming. So that's your traditional hardship right there. So with that, I want to thank you all for bearing with us tonight on this long road, and hopefully with this approval and the imminent DEP approval that will allow the actual construction to occur, but would not affect the location or the height of the home that is set by the existing permit that's been received. But with that, we're hoping to be able to actually return this home finally to something that will benefit the neighborhood. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay, board members, we'll go into executive session now, discuss any questions or comments that you might have. And if there are none, or even if there are some, if someone would like to make a motion.
I'd like to ask, when was the flood? I didn't, if you said it, I didn't hear it.
I'd have to Google to see when it actually happened, but it was Ida, I believe. So it's been some time of this process.
And has the house been empty since then?
It has.
Okay,
Now, though,
thank
I'll
you.
say very well maintained, but at quite an expense to have it continue. In fact, when the day those photos were taken, the landscaping crew was out there making sure it looked appropriate for the neighborhood. But it's a tough boat to carry continually without being able to build a new home, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think, just correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the witnesses said that the level that the house will be brought up is above that 5-foot watermark.
Yeah. Yeah, has to
2
be.
feet above the base flood
2 feet, right?
elevation.
Yes, it's 2 feet above the base flood elevation of 87. The first floor is going to be 89.3.
Right, but that 5-foot watermark you showed us, 5 feet above grade that you showed us from Hurricane Ida, I gather.
Right.
It's above.
Well, we're required to build above the FEMA elevation and above the New Jersey flood hazard elevation. Ida was a unique storm, and it was something that no models could predict. What's going to happen in the future, no one can say. I mean, how high do you go? Do you go another 4 feet to prevent some other type of storm that you're not aware of? All we have is the base flood elevation and the requirements that we be 2 foot above that, which is going to put our first floor at 89. And based upon the rough elevations, it looked like the worst case of flooding was around 90. Because when we were looking at those elevations of where the water came up to, it was around the road. And that's just looking roughly on the paper. So it appears that we're going to be above that 5-foot mark.
And
But I don't know by exactly how much.
Yeah, let me just add, the actual living space will be at about 95. So it'll be well above. Anything below that will be waterproof. So it won't sustain damage if there was a flood.
Basically, the garage is basically non-habitable space.
Right.
I see there's a utility room. Is that equipment going to be hung then?
Yes, it'll be raised. Yeah,
Okay. So there's really nothing sitting on the floor.
correct.
I've been trying to figure out how to ask this question, so I'll take a crack at it anyway. I'm sure everybody involved is motivated to make sure that this new house does not get flooded. And if you can kind of explain to me, if you are convinced that, I mean, I think this is a bigger house or not smaller. And I looked and I saw that the impervious coverage is maybe less than half what it was before, which is amazing, except for the fact that it's a big piece of property. So I just wondered if there's anything about the way that the house, how deep it is and, you know, into the ground, and if it's ultimately having less of an impact on, if it's not increasing the flooding just by virtue of the, you know, how deep it is. I hope I'm making some kind of sense here, but.
We are increasing the total impervious coverage on the site.
Oh,
So
then I misread what I was looking at. I thought I saw 14% and it's now
Well,
going
there's different numbers here. The proposed disturbance, the proposed impervious coverage is 21,821 square feet, which is 5.2%. And I'm looking for where the existing was.
I think it was previously 14% if I was
It was
reading.
previously it was 5, the existing is 5.5 if you look at the zoning chart. So we're reducing it by 0.3% for the total impervious coverage on the site.
I mean, that's.
So there's going to be more ground for water to seep back into the soil than when we started.
I'm just, yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm persuaded that everybody involved is not looking to make it more likely to flood, because was why you're doing this to begin with. But I was just wondering if there was anything I was missing in that regard, or if there was anything you could do. So.
I believe
It looks like you've done everything you could do, actually. So
according to the design, yes. I mean, other than putting the house even further out of the ground, which is going to create even more of a variance.
mm-hmm.
That'd be the only other option that we would have at this point.
Right.
If the garage were to be eliminated, the garage beneath the house, theoretically, you could lower that first floor.
No, we can't. We have to be above the FEMA and above the state elevation. So our first floor has to stay at that elevation.
So okay. Yeah, so basically that space, you're just using it because it's there. It's going to be visible no matter what.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Eve,
I move we approve this.
Okay, I just want to, Eve, do you have any other question?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, sorry, Stephen.
No, I move that we approve this variance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jim. Any comments before we vote? Okay. Are we going to condition this on this approval that the engineer mentioned he's still waiting from FEMA?
No, we're waiting for wetlands. We already have the FEMA approval.
Wetland. But no, you can't apply for a permit until you get this.
That you are correct, Mr. Chairman. Whether it's conditioned on that or not, we're unable to disturb this without that DEP approval.
Yeah, so it doesn't even, we really don't have to condition it because you can't do anything anyway. Okay. All right. Any comments on the motion? Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Davich,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next hearing is case number 23-411, 23 Running Cedar Road, block 3401, lot 1.20 or 120 in the R1-T zone. Okay.
There's something going on that I'm unaware of.
No, I just lost my connection. I'm trying to get back on.
Oh, you're,
See you though.
Gotten quiet.
you can see you.
Yeah,
You can see me? I can't
Yeah.
see me.
we
Okay,
can
I'm
see it,
trying,
we can hear you.
okay. Well, I can endeavor to get back on, but let's continue then. I announced the project,
The noticing is in order. The board has
Okay.
jurisdiction.
okay. Derek, can you, read your memo, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bernard and Jean Adler are the owners and applicants of 23 Running Cedar Road. As Chairman indicated, it's located in the R1T zone in the former township. They're seeking a FAR variance pursuant to NJS A40:55D-70D4. Family home. The existing property is non-compliant with floor area ratio. The requirement's 10% and the existing's 11.6%. Just keep in mind that over the last 10 years, the town has changed the FAR definition, and previously garages were exempt if they were part of the main house, where they're no.
Derek, we're losing you. You're
Yep,
cutting
lost you.
out. Not sure why.
As I would, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, as I was saying, the FAR definition has been changed numerous times over the last 10 years. For example, the attached garage on this house was exempt up to 280 square feet. Cathedral ceilings were exempt previously. They're no longer exempt. And then attic space was also exempt. So my inclination is that's why it exceeds the FAR now. The applicant is proposing to remove, 190 square foot unenclosed porch and construct a 490 square foot enclosed porch in its place. The porch will be constructed over an existing impervious coverage and will not add any additional coverage. In accordance with the definition of an impervious coverage, a 200 square foot exemption from impervious coverage is permitted for open covered porches. The elimination of the existing 190 square foot porch results in 88 square feet of impervious coverage credit being removed. To keep this impervious coverage at its current level, the applicant is proposing to remove 88 square feet of impervious coverage associated with the front gravel driveway in front of the home. So the applicant is seeking an FAR variance. The maximum is 10%. The existing is 11.6, and the proposed will be 12%. As you're aware, this is a D variance. It does require 5 affirmative votes. Although the proofs are slightly different, the applicant shall demonstrate that the site can accommodate any issues associated with the increased FAR than is permitted by the code. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Board members, any questions of Mr. Bridger? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Who's going to be presenting this application this evening? Mr. Kennedy, it's been a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, Ryan Kennedy again from the law firm of Stevens and Lee. As Derek mentioned, we're here tonight to talk about enclosing and expanding a porch on the rear of the existing home that the Adlers call home. We'll hear from the homeowner in a bit about some of the needs for doing this. It's the main idea here is to make the rear of the property, the beautiful outdoor section, kind of accessible and viewable and usable in a way that as the couple makes this their forever home, then age in place, to be able to access this back part of the yard. Yes, you'll see It is completely screened and not visible from any other property. It is existing coverage, patio, and porch that is being just kind of reconfigured. And I'll say it took me a while to really wrap my head around. But while we are not increasing impervious coverage by 1 inch with this project, because it's being completely built on existing porch or existing patio, which is physically impervious and existing, because of a loss of credit, we would technically be in a variance condition. So what we've actually done to get the variance number to be 0, we are physically removing additional coverage. So the end result of this project will be about 100 square feet less of real impervious coverage, even though the variance number stays the same. It's a bit of a shell game with credits that we lose by enclosing an existing porch. So while we're actually decreasing the amount of real coverage, the net number will be 0. We have our architect, Eric Holterman, tonight, who designed the project, and we do have the Adlers here as well to speak a little bit about their need and use for this as they continue to remain in this home and accommodate their needs as they stay here. With that, if I could have ask Eric and Ms. Adler to both unmute yourselves, and I'll ask that you both be sworn in by the board attorney.
Yes, if you would both raise your right hand, do you both swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. Jean, if you could just very briefly introduce yourself and explain to the board what brought you to engage Eric as your architect to try to make these modifications to your home and your longtime connection to this community.
So we've lived in Princeton for 40 years. Eric, I trust in design, and he understands our needs as we're aging, retiring, and for medical reasons, and to be in a screen porch, especially. This was the summer of the bees, and I have my epinephrine pen. And for needs of my husband, medically, we would like to be able to have a space that we would feel we were outdoors, but not physically that we weren't screened in. So the main reason here is to be able to enjoy our home, stay in Princeton. As I said, we've been here 40 years. We're not retiring to Florida. And, I just love our community. So this would be very beneficial to both my husband and I.
Thank you. And just before we transition on, just one question. I know your neighborhood has a review approval process itself, and I guess you're happy to report that the architectural review committee for the association passed the project with flying colors. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
Thank you.
I don't want to ruffle any feathers.
Often the best projects are ones that no one can see. So with that, obviously, Ms. Adler's will remain available for any questions. If the board has any now, happy to accommodate them. But next, we'd like to bring on our, if there are no direct questions, immediately bring our architect, Eric, next. So Mr. Holterman, if you could, I know you've been before this board many times, but if you could briefly give them the benefit of your credentials so I can have you accepted as an expert here tonight.
Sure. My name's Eric Holterman. I'm a partner at HMR Architects. Graduated from College of North Carolina with an architecture degree in 1980. Licensed around 1985. Joined HMR, then Holt Morgan Russell Architects in 1999, and have been a partner there for the last several years.
Come before us many times. We will accept you as an expert.
Thank you. And with that, as we normally do, I'd like if I could share my screen and mark our the exhibits that we provided as our one exhibit tonight. Eric, as we start here, this is, I guess, to start a side view of the home, and an arrow points to the existing non-screened-in porch that's to the rear of this property. All right.
Right, in this photograph, the left side of that photograph is facing the street. Still set back pretty far from the street. So where the arrow is in the back, is sort of at the end of the house at the backyard.
So it's to orient the board to Ronnie Cedar. I guess here is the tax map showing the property. Is that right, Eric? Oh, no, not tax map. I'm sorry, the zoning map.
Right, in that lot, you can see the front of the house faces sort of generally southwest, and the rear of the house faces north.
Here's a neighborhood photo. Kind of, you can see all of the preserved, I suppose. This was a cluster development neighborhood space behind the house and the surrounding streets that we find here. I guess switching the orientation the other way so that the Running Cedar is top of the screen now, because we're focusing more on the back of the house. I guess this next photo shows the surrounding homes and the some of the screening in between them, and I guess that arrow is pointed once again to the back patio and the existing porch.
And on this photo, you can also see the gravel driveway on the right side, sort of at the back of that arrow.
Yes, we'll get to that. So next series of kind of side-by-sides of the existing elevations and the the existing porch that's kind of highlighted in yellow with the arrow to it, and then the arrow on the right showing the photo of where that lives, in reality. I'll also note
on that left image where it's yellow, where you see doors, those are actually doors that are beyond on the wall of the house beyond. The porch itself is open with columns.
And this line of trees between the home and the neighboring property, I guess this kind of oblique satellite photo is well above that home, so that those kind of tower above the street, or excuse me, the home. And with apologies, I think the volunteer fire department in my neighborhood is being called out, so sorry for the if you hear the siren over my speaking. Next slide, Eric. Again, the existing rear of the home, showing the existing rear porch.
Right, and for a house that is otherwise a generous house, it actually has a surprisingly small back porch. There's really, it only projects out approximately 8 feet from the house, barely enough to really get some chairs, and not really enough to get a table out there.
So this slide here, this is the existing floor plan of the home, and if you could talk a little bit about where maybe you explored tucking this kind of screened-in space elsewhere in a useful way, and what some of the obstacles were.
Yes, when we started, since we knew we were already, beyond our limit of floor area ratio, our first step was to look to see, can we hold the exterior envelope and carve into the house and convert any of the existing interior space into the kind of semi-outdoor space that we're looking to create. But you can see here that the staircase is right there, library, which is not one of the larger rooms. So in fact, really unable to go sort of back into the house, and the only way to get the kind of protected outdoor space that we were looking to gain here was to go farther out over the existing patio.
And if you were to go further in a different direction, are there issues with grade and being able to make that space accessible to someone who might perhaps in the future?
There are. I mean, at this end, we only have a couple of steps. Had we put it somewhere else, we would have had more.
Okay. So this next slide, I think, shows the proposed design compared to the existing porch.
Right, and that existing porch projects out about 8 feet, and then we're going out another 12 feet beyond that. to make a good usable space in proportion with the rest of the house.
So I guess here's a side by side of the existing versus the proposed. I believe that, so the yellow is the existing open porch, and the right, the blue kind of shaded is the kind of expanded portion with the screen panels.
And on the right side, then you can see the green area. That's the existing open porch, about 190 square feet. And then the blue area that's being added is an additional 307 square feet, so that the new total porch will be 497 square feet.
Now, and that's just the way you drew things, but the existing condition, you drew some of the features of the house that were kind of set back behind them. I guess they're just not included in here, but this does not protect beyond the existing rear portion of the house that's shown here on the left. Is that right?
That's correct.
Here's the existing and proposed kind of rear elevation. Is that right?
Right, and the across the width at the rear of the house, the addition is no wider than the existing. It sort of just is extruded straight out from the existing porch.
All right, so here's where things get, we're not talking about a very big porch here, but where the numbers get interesting, and Eric, you'll have to help me, but ultimately the new porch is 497 square feet. The old one was 190 square feet, which means that we're adding 307 square feet of new porch. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Now, while the floor area, though, changes in a much different number, though, because the loss of credit for unenclosed porches. Is that right?
Right. So that currently there are two unenclosed porches, one at the front that's 112 square feet, and another one at the existing one at the back is 190.
So
in making this change, we're completely eliminating the 190 square foot open porch, so that we're only left with 112 square foot open porch on the front of the house. And that's the only credit then we're able to take against the 200.
Got it. So that's why the increase in floor area does not line up with the increase of actual porch.
And why, if you look at the bottom right corner of the box, the actual added square foot area is 395 square feet, which is the 307 that we're adding. That's the blue area in the plan, plus the 88 square foot of credit that we've lost, equals 395 square foot addition to floor area.
Now, we have a similar challenge in understanding, at least I did, the impervious coverage, because where the blue part of the new portion of the porch is already impervious. Is that correct? It's patio now.
Correct.
So while we're not actually adding any new surface that water can't go through, technically we would be, through loss of impervious coverage credit for open porches, be adding impervious coverage. And to compensate that, we've actually got to just do it the old-fashioned way and remove impervious coverage elsewhere.
Correct. So to make up for that 88 square foot credit that we've lost, there's a spot in the gravel driveway that's wider than it needs to be, and we'll take 88 square feet away from that.
Got it. So from a variance perspective, we're staying at 0, but from a reality and from water getting into the ground perspective, we're going to be a net positive of 88 square feet of pervious area. And I guess that's what this next slide shows. There's a previously, I guess, approved this kind of secondary driveway extension that we will be removing a part of, so that we stay at a net 0. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just want to if you could just speak a minute about the usage of that. While on paper it looks quite large, but we've both been to the site. It is actually kind of challenging to navigate, but perhaps want to just explain the purpose of that extra part of the driveway that was, and we did check it was permitted.
Right, the portion of the driveway in front of the garages, which is just sort of to the, above the top of this plan, is actually a little challenging to sort of negotiate and turn a car around there. And really, so what happens a lot of times is guests in particular will drive up, just park in the driveway in the front, and then rather than have to go to the side of the house and make a 5-point turn to get out again, this way they can just make a loop right back out to the street again. And then that works for deliveries or anything else. It's because it's a difficult place to try and turn your car around unless you can just make that loop.
So we've engineered the project to not require, but in an unfortunately confusing way because of the credits, any type of coverage variances or changes through the loss of existing impervious coverage. There's no similar tricks to play for floor area, unfortunately, and there is that small increase that does need 5 affirmative votes. From a variance or screening perspective, we certainly agree with the homeowners association. This is not one that anyone could see. It does not affect the massing of the home from a neighborhood perspective. It does take advantage of existing impervious surface and existing space, but expands it slightly so that someone could, essentially fit a table there and enjoy the outdoors. It is not fully enclosed and weatherized. It is less than that, but in a way that still does count as floor area, whereas the current condition does not. But we're here to request this small modification that would greatly enhance the ability of this family to enjoy the outdoor space, the open space and preserved space behind them in a way that's accessible. Unfortunately, there's just no other location to bump into for the home to have such a space that wouldn't either, frankly, require covering creating new impervious surface or creating a space that's just not accessible to the rest of the home or usable. So we hope that you agree that the benefits of this, particularly for allowing this couple to age in place and modify the home slightly for that purpose and enjoyment of this outdoor area, has next to no, if not no, detriment, but frankly all benefit. With that, I want to thank the board. We're certainly available to answer any questions, and thank you for your time tonight.
Members, any questions of the applicant or the applicant's architect?
I have one question.
Please.
And maybe it's for the applicant, the homeowners association that approved this addition, does it include both properties on your, to your left and to your right on the perimeter?
Gina, I don't know if is the committee include those folks, or are they part of the association?
So I know the next door neighbor, they had called John and asked him if he had any problems. The Rushbrook Association usually just focuses more on the facade of the house and what you can see from the street. But one of the other neighbors is the president, and so he brought it before the review, I don't know all the people on it. So they just said they didn't see any problem with it. And they especially called the neighbor next door who was closest to us, where the tree line is that you see, the large trees. And he had no problem with it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Donna, you're okay with that?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, if we have no other questions, Mr. Kennedy, do you want to make a comment before we go into the public portion of the hearing?
Just wanted to echo what Mr. Bridger said to begin with. While, you know, we view this is a positive change and one with no negative impacts, it is one that we're here, frankly, because of the changing rules in Princeton over time. The property does not comply now, but did when it was built. And there's several features of it, like the way the garage was built, that just count as floor area now. And when this was built does not, and does put homes like this, even you know, for small changes in the position of needing to come for these variances. And those rule changes were you know, designed to perhaps change development patterns going forward. But it does mean that even small changes to existing homes like this do require these variances. And I appreciate Mr. Bridger for pointing that out, because this was not a situation where, you know, a family went and, you know, in the dead of night snuck in a bunch of extra floor area, or that there was variances granted previously. This was just how the home was designed and built. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open this up to the public now. If anybody's out there that wants to speak, just indicate that by pushing the little raise your hands button at the bottom of the screen. Claudia, do we have anyone who's indicated they'd like to speak?
There are no hands.
Okay. All right. Give it a second or two here. All right, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And once again, Mr. Kennedy, before we go into executive session, do you want to add anything?
Yes, again, thank you all for again the double duty this month and hearing this get through some of the backlog. I hope you agree that this small addition, utilizing existing impervious coverage and an existing porch to modify it so that this family can enjoy the outside as they plan their retirement and to age in place. There really wasn't a lot of alternatives design-wise or place to go, and there it's a large portion of the request is frankly a loss of credit that comes from screening in the project to kind of protect those of us, some in my family included, who don't do well with bug bee stings. So there's some benefit there as well, but ultimately this will allow them to enjoy the outdoor space in a way that doesn't negatively impact really anything in the master plan, the reasons for zoning, but instead promotes many of those uses. So again, thank you for hearing us tonight.
You're welcome. Welcome. Okay, board, let's go into executive session, discuss this, or someone wants to make a motion. Any questions? Well, I think that the addition, the enclosed room, given the circumstances, makes a lot of sense. And I think everyone has tried their best and succeeded in mitigating any potential issues with the site or the home. Anyone? Comments?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree. Okay. Well, if someone would like to make a motion,
I'll move to approve it.
second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Don. Okay, any questions on the motion? Okay. If not, Claudia, can you call the roll?
Ms. Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Davidge,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Thank you very much for coming before us. Enjoy your home. Eric, very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your consideration, and I'm happy it's approved, obviously. And we'll still enjoy Princeton many more years, we hope. Thank you.
Very good. Hopefully so. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, board, that concludes our hearings for the evening, so we'll do this again next Wednesday. So have a good week.
Have a good week. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Hey, bye.
Hey, Steve,
Yes,
are we still being recorded?
Yeah, I have to shut it off in order to stop the recording.
okay.
You have to call him.
Well,
Just,
I'm gonna end it. Have a good night, guys.
thanks.
All right.
Just wanted to chat. No big deal, Steve.
Yeah,
I'll
give me a
talk to you
call.
next week.
Paul,